The Lone Ranger sold his wardrobe. The Lone Ranger sold his bad dog. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know, 'cause times change, I know.
On some days, he's more than humble. On some days, he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange, well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange, well, I know. Joy, 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 work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, 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 work, work, work harder, you say. On some days, he's more than humble. On some days, he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange, well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange, well, I know. Joy, 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 work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, 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 work, work, work harder, you say. Joy, 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 work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, 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 work, work, work harder, you say.
Come along, join the fun, in a world where adventure is never done. Every corner we turn, a new friend in tow. It's time to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know. Across the lands, together we go. Hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode. start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know across the land. Together we go, hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show.
What up, though? What up, what up, what up, what up? What up, though? What up, Twitch? What up, Pharaoh? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? It's your boy. It's your boy. Do, 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 do. Yeah, I don't really have anything. Any What up, pixelated puka? I don't have any pre-game shit to talk about. Job is still the jobbin'. Hey. I guess we're gonna start with Stampy. Start with Stampy. Start spreading the news. I'm snacking today. I'll make a brand new start of it in old Snack York. If I can't snack it there, I'll snack it anywhere. It's up to you. Snack York. Snack York. Do 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 do. That's it. Those were the snacks. You know how this works. Primordial pouch. Get the primordial pouch. And now we're transferring to the lab. What up, Night Loaded? Oh. Say hello. Say hello to chat. Goodest boy. Get the lem. Yeah. No, that's it. That's all the snacks you get. Now you lay down and sleep. Take a nap. You want scritches first? Big scritchin'. What up, Ribbons? This is it. This is the stream. If you're new here, this is the stream. We just pet a cat for 3 hours and then I raid out. You know, Stampy Goes to China would probably get more views, but yeah. When I go to China, you can hang out with Hassan. All right. Now that we burned some time, you want to do some content? Starting off with another AI cover.
Shedding skin, I've been picking scabs again. I'm down, digging through my old muscles, looking for a clue. I've been crawling on my belly, clearing out what could have been. I've been wallowing in my own confused and insecure delusions, for a piece to cross me over or a word to guide me in. I wanna feel the changes coming down. I wanna know what I've been hiding in my shadow, my shadow. Change is coming through my shadow, my shadow. Shedding skin, I've been picking my scabs again. Joining my child, my shadow moves closer to meaning. I've been crawling on my belly, clearing out what could have been. I've been wallowing in my own chaotic, insecure delusions. I wanna feel the change consume me, feel the outside turning in. I wanna feel the metamorphosis and cleansing I've endured in my shadow, my shadow. Change is coming, now is my time. Listen to my muscle memory, contemplate what I've been clinging to. 46 and 2 ahead of me. I choose to live and to grow, take and give and to move, learn and love and to cry, kill and die and to be paranoid and to lie. step through. See my shadow changing, stretching up and over me. Soften this old armor, hoping I can clear the way by stepping through my shadow, coming out the other side. Step into the shadow, 46 into or just ahead on me.
As the man walks, a kitten.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic AI cover. I will take no questions. Up next, how the cat distribution system works.
As the man walks, a kitten emerges from the grass, runs toward him, and without hesitation, climbs onto his leg. This is not a coincidence. This is the final step in a sophisticated operation orchestrated by the cat distribution system. Let's rewind to uncover how we arrived at this moment. The cat distribution system consists of many hidden, strategically positioned bunkers spread around regions of human presence. Let's zoom in on one of them to examine the precise operations inside. At ground level, there is no visible sign of an underground structure. This is critical to keeping the system undetectable to humans. The bunkers are only accessible to authorized feline agents.
What up, Ben?
They must scan their irises to unlock the carefully camouflaged door. Beneath the ground lies a remarkable feat of engineering, with each floor serving a distinct role. The chain of command begins on the lowest level, in the operations room, where high-ranking generals and special operators coordinate and manage critical aspects of the mission. Their objectives are to monitor every stray cat and kitten in the region, and to profile and test every human to assess their suitability as potential companions. Their operations rely on highly trained special agents who live directly above. Half of the units are always on standby, ready to deploy. When an order is received, 2 groups of agents are dispatched simultaneously.
This is the cat distribution system. This is how it works. What up, humanity?
Each group has a critical objective. One gathers information on the number and location of stray cats and newborn kittens. The other monitors humans across the region, conducting behavioral tests to determine whether they meet the strict criteria to become cat companions. Here we see a feline agent approaching an unsuspecting human, taking note of their body language, attitude, and willingness to share food. In the background, another agent conducts the cuddle test. This agent lies in front of the human, waiting to see whether they will be petted or ignored. Once the tests are complete, the agents return to the bunker as invisibly as they left to report their findings. The special operators then receive the data, update human profiles, and refresh the database of available cats and kittens. From there, the analysis department on the second floor takes over. Using highly sophisticated technology, they meticulously examine each human profile and the corresponding test results to reach a final decision. The human is either approved as a suitable cat companion or excluded. Approved candidates are matched with a nearby cat or kitten, and a detailed report is forwarded to the final link in the chain of command. The distribution room. Upon receiving the report, A unit of feline logistics specialists and 2 distribution agents hold an immediate meeting. They plan the ideal location and time for the delivery based on the intelligence gathered about the human's habits. Once the plan is perfected, the distribution agents are dispatched. They head out, locate the chosen kitten, position themselves to intercept the human's path, and stage the environment. When the critical moment arrives, they release the kitten while remaining completely undetected. Evidence of the successful delivery is documented. The agents then silently withdraw, returning to the bunker to prepare for the next operation. Although all distribution bunkers appear to operate independently, our thorough investigation concluded that a centralized headquarters must exist. For instance, we observed feline agents moving satellite communication equipment into one of the bunkers. Yet, despite our best efforts, we were unable to locate the main headquarters of the cat distribution system. To this day, it remains a mystery.
True facts. True facts. And here is your linky. So, you may have heard that the AI bubble is about to pop, or is popping, or has popped. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm getting too much money. Whiskered, welcome in. Thank you for the biddies. And because you might have heard that the AI bubble may pop, there has been a tremendous amount of video content about the AI bubble. New Siliconversations, the AI bubble video bubble. And the alerts are not working yet, or at least that one's. The AI bubble video bubble is about to pop.
The AI Bubble video bubble is a bubble on YouTube of tech and finance creators making content about the AI bubble, which is the theory that AI companies are currently being massively overvalued by investors. The general fear is that when this bubble finally pops, it'll take the rest of the stock market down with it, causing a financial panic, a global recession, and several years of hard times for the ordinary working people whose jobs these tech companies are trying to replace with automation. Excitedly predicting the impending collapse of the global economy is a great way to get views, which is why the AI bubble has triggered an AI bubble video bubble. But wait, how do we know AI companies are overvalued? Well, many of them, like OpenAI, are extremely unprofitable, and their only plan to reach profitability seems to be invent techno-Satan and use it to replace all human workers. You may have seen this chart and others like it circulating in the AI bubble video bubble. It shows how money is sloshing between these companies in a big...
What up, Eric McKetton? I can explain the CDS. Do you want a kitty? You won't get one. Do you not want a kitty? 3 will show up at your doorstep. I say this because I don't want a kitty, but I have 3. I am playing a deadly game in that I have 2 kitties, and I'm not saying I don't want another kitty, but I vacillate quickly between wanting another kitty and not wanting another kitty. So I exist in a superposition of both wanting and not wanting a kitty. Schrodinger's cat owner, if you will, and therefore I have not yet been granted the third kitty.
Big circle that inflates their reported revenue and props up their stock price. At the center of this chart, we find Nvidia, the AI chip designer, which is currently the most valuable public company on the planet. Their business model is basically selling computer chips to unprofitable AI firms who will hopefully one day figure out how to make money. At over 4.5 trillion US dollars, Nvidia is currently worth more than the entire annual economic output of South America. That is insane bubble mechanics. Disclaimer: I'm a physics boy, not a finance boy. I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I could be entirely wrong.
Respect for admitting it.
Please don't make financial decisions based on the ramblings of a YouTube stick figure. The AI bubble video bubble might help to destroy the actual AI bubble, because it is not good for investor confidence to have lots of people loudly yelling about the impending collapse of their investments.
So the investors, the venture capitalists, are watching YouTube to make their determinations on what they should be investing in? Did you read that out loud to yourself or an adult before you said it? What a beef.
AI's not a bubble. You just don't understand how valuable this technology will be in the future. Okay, well, you know who else thinks the AI sector might be in a bubble? Sam
He did not say that, dipshit.
Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. Of course, it is possible that Sam is just hedging his bets so that he still looks smart if his entire industry collapses. A crash might actually benefit OpenAI in the long term by pushing their smaller rivals out of business and reducing the overall demand for computing power in existing data centers. This would lower the cost of compute, which is probably OpenAI's single biggest expense.
I mean, maybe, but that really sounds like you're edging towards fucking conspiracy theory.
On the other hand, because they are super mega unprofitable, OpenAI needs to keep raising money to exist. If the AI hype disappears completely and no one will give them more money, OpenAI could go bankrupt and pull their inbred circle of customer-supplier investors down with them. Speaking of ruthless business expansion, Silicon
What up, Charm Chaos?
Conversations is hiring. I'm looking for an illustrator to help me make these videos.
Hey, good for you,
If you can
buddy.
draw stuff digitally and you like my content and you want a job, click the link in the description. The deadline to apply is Saturday, the 6th of December, 2025. I don't know.
So, if any of you are looking for a job as an animator for a YouTube channel with 83,500 subscribers, maybe this is for you.
How close these companies are to building Techno-Satan. My hope is that they are many years away, and that they'll burn through all their money before they figure out how to turn a profit on AI. The collapse of the AI bubble would slow down AI development, and give us more time to fight for legally binding AI.
I assume something similar to what they already do, Jenny, because thematically you do want to keep it going. You know, you don't want to venture too far off from the brand, you know what I mean? What up, Cosmic? The cash circulation in the AI world is a Ponzi scheme. I don't know that it's a Ponzi. A Ponzi scheme is a specific thing, and I don't know that it qualifies as a Ponzi scheme. The entire, I don't even know what word you were going for there, could collapse. Edifice. That wasn't it, but I at least got what you meant. The entire edifice could collapse if Nvidia loses customers. Possibly. Is there any evidence that Techno-Satan would be any worse than current existence under capitalism, though? It's a fun thought, isn't it? That's why your boy, like, I understand that top speed till you drop me scares a lot of people when it comes to AI for a variety of different reasons. I am, I live in this. So stop waving it around, get in there and fuck. That's what I say.
Safety standards. I've made a lot of content about the danger that a future superintelligent AI could wipe out humanity. In retrospect, myself and the rest of the AI safety community probably helped to inflate the AI bubble. I mean, if I ran a company that sold hats and the world's top scientists kept loudly announcing, "Those hats are too powerful, they could kill everyone in the world," business people are just going to be like, "Damn, I got to invest in those hats." Public anxiety about AI has probably driven a lot of money into the AI industry. This would explain why some tech CEOs will enthusiastically hype up the potential danger of AI while rushing to develop the
Nemesis?
technology as quickly as possible. Still, we can't pretend that superintelligence wouldn't threaten our survival as a species in the hopes that staying quiet about the risks will make investors lose interest. The only realistic solution is legislation. If you want to support a
Again, sure, right? Your boy is not against regulation, your boy is not against legislation. But who is going to pass your legislation, my G? This is the problem. This is the hand wave. This is the thing that isn't actually discussed. Do you think you have the you don't have the votes. You don't have the votes.
global ban on superintelligence, at least until we prove it can
Oh, sure. Yeah, because a global anything is possible in today's geopolitical climate. Yeah. Yeah, right on top of that, Rose.
be developed safely, you should sign this open letter, calling for exactly that. I'll put a link in the description below.
I am sure that the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, China, Russia, France, etc., 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 ad nauseum, are all going to be swayed by your online public petition. Hey, good luck. I mean that 100%. If this person, this creator, Siliconversations, can create an online petition that actually gets this thing done, who am I to judge, right? Like, who am I to naysay what you're doing? We saved the ozone layer for a minute. We did. I believe it's still saved, at least as far as I know. No one's said anything about it being fucked up again. But yeah, we did that. That was a different time.
Thanks very much to my supporters on Patreon, especially those in the big sentient hat tier. I'm
The saving is diminishing, or the ozone hole is diminishing?
Silly Conversations. Thanks for watching.
Hey, then by all means, here's a link, which I'm sure will include the link to the petition. Again, my position comes because I don't think it's going to happen. That doesn't mean that there aren't valid reasons for it to happen, and that happening would not be potentially a good thing. Airplanes Aren't Real is a fantastic name. Excuse me. I love that. Up next, how AI layoffs could backfire on employers.
Layoff announcements skyrocketed toward the end of 2025 as generative AI and economic tightening pressure corporations to reach.
We're starting this over. I want you to listen to the way that they say this It sounds like they're reporting from the future. What up, Leftist Corp? Ozone hole is dramatically thinning again, according to the numbers I saw midsummer. Well, that sucks. That was one thing I thought we had actually got done.
Layoff announcements skyrocketed toward the end of 2025 as generative AI and economic tightening pressure corporations to restructure their
It's just weird phrasing that sounds like they're reporting from the future.
workforces. Many companies are cutting costs by trimming middle management and, in certain industries, eliminating entry-level roles that can be replaced by AI. But layoffs aren't the only thing experts are concerned about. Generative AI is speeding up how people work, but that efficiency can come at the trade-off of maintaining skills and rising up the corporate ladder.
It might save a buck now. The challenge becomes, in a few years down the road, where is the pipeline of talent to move into those really important middle ranks of your company? I think
They eliminated the middle ranks. Yeah. It's internally inconsistent. Pharaoh, but you heard that the U.S. added 119,000 jobs so far. Just wait. Just you wait.
there's going to be a market failure whereby companies are reticent to really continue to invest in training young people instead of just simply turning to the cheaper AI to do those tasks if they fear some competitor is just going to poach.
The way you make a senior employee is not through school, it's by doing the job alongside someone who knows more, and you learn by doing, and that's where the bulk of our skill comes from.
Here's how AI may be killing people's chances at a promotion. Globally, nearly 40% of workers' core skills will be disrupted by 2030 due to AI and digitalization. It may be difficult for newer employees to build the skills they need due to organizational flattening.
The process for building skill has been the same for about 160,000 years, and it can
Okay.
consists of trying to do something that is close to the edge of your capability, but not at it, alongside someone who actually has already done it repetitively and knows how to do it, i.e. an expert. So a novice and an expert working together on a real problem. You work your way through a number of problems,
Smoke them if you got them. Just smoke the weed, kids.
and eventually you find yourself with somebody looking over your shoulder,
What up, Dojo?
trying to learn from you.
New technology, such as generative AI, allows an expert to work faster, which means companies may not preserve the novice-expert bond in order to save time and money. In occupations where AI can perform most tasks, the share of workers in that role fell by about 14% over 5 years.
the weed.
Why did it show up on my thing? Big Ben 1701 redeemed fail for 420 bits. Oh.
Years.
Why would I involve someone in the work that would slow it down and make more mistakes if I don't have to? The answer is I wouldn't. I don't.
I wouldn't.
I found this in robotic surgery in 2012
Congratulations, Ben.
through 2014 and published studies about that. Junior surgeons are now strictly optional in robotic surgery. Instead of participating for 4.5 hours in a 4-hour procedure, they participate for 10 to 15 minutes. That is still true. And that is true at scale now with LLM. So it's not about management, it's about expert novice and breaking that relationship.
The challenge is if everyone takes that mindset of, I can't guarantee these folks are going to stick around and be my mid-level talent, I'm just going to save a buck today. If everyone does that, the entire pipeline of talent starts to collapse. And in a few
And though I'm memeing throughout this entire video, this is true. Prior to AI, at least in the current understanding, right? Prior to 2022, an issue actually came to public knowledge regarding the erosion of the writer's room on TV shows. Because what you would do traditionally is that you would have good writers and a bunch of newbies who could be funny, maybe were comedians or something else, right, related. And they would all be in a room together and they would write the scripts for the show. And that's how these new people got entered into this pipeline that eventually led them to potentially be showrunners. However, that structure was largely hollowed out by capitalism, as businesses that produce TV content reduce the number of additional staff, the number of people that they had to pay, etc., etc. This is just that with AI. I'm a goddamn genius, and I can't get my scanner to see my shared folder on my Windows 11 PC. Where's my expert novice bond? What Pharaoh said.
Few years, employers in lots of sectors are going to find themselves in trouble.
Generative AI is currently able to do the work of some entry-level employees. But right now, at least, it isn't capable of taking on more advanced tasks that may require interpersonal skills or sensitive judgment.
So think the law partner advising clients as opposed to sort of sitting behind a desk and drafting contracts. So the challenge is going to be what happens if employers thin out the ranks of those early career jobs that bridge education to that kind of expertise. How in the world are young people going to get trained up to come in at a level 3 if they haven't done level 1 and level 2? This is a really existential challenge for employers because they might be excited to save on labor.
Yes, but what you fail to appreciate is today's dollars are worth more than tomorrow's dollars to this mindset. So
cost today. So why am I going to invest in training up? If the billable hours aren't there with the young lawyers, why am I going to take on extra first-year associates that I don't need in the same leanest model? Why would my competitor not just poach those young people?
We need to expect that the economy is not investing to keep this expert-novice relationship alive in the work. In fact, we are aggressively breaking that relationship through default use of AI. And that means in 3 to 5 years, whatever firms, organizations, occupations were counting on that ladder continuing to work are going to face a new nasty set of problems. Cleanup is always harder than prevention.
yes, but that's someone else's problem. That's how this works. The CEO currently with the business will get a couple years of large payouts and then fuck off to do something else. And then the company will collapse or it will adapt. And if it collapses, it will be eaten by its contemporaries. And if it is able to overcome this adversity, then that will become the new paradigm. And they need more executives. Just replace the executives or train the entry-level people at slightly higher pay until they are competent. Yes.
This notion of how people are going to advance in their careers, what is the training going to look like?
And then the thought occurs, do you know there are people in the world who will attempt to be the best, right? They will attempt to learn on their own. So you don't have to train these people to be the next level of executive. What you're looking for is someone who will train themselves so that you don't have to. They will pay someone or they will push, through adversity, etc., etc. The latter goal is to gain enough skills so you don't actually have to do anything. You work for the ability to not work. Yes. It's literally the foundation of American, the American dream, if you will, right? Is to either make enough money so that at 65, 67, whatever, you can retire, or make enough money beforehand to retire earlier so that you don't have to work anymore. If you stay in the business, then you're trying to get to a position where you can take all of your work that you would have to do and give it to other functionaries who do the work on your behalf, and you get all the credit for building a good team dynamic.
Like, what has to happen first in higher ed to get them ready for these roles, but importantly, what should employers be doing differently to train up workers if those early career low stakes but still well paid roles are thinning out? You know, how do we make sure employers aren't just optimizing only for the short run? I personally think we probably need some public policy tools.
And there it is again. Public policy tools. Who's going to vote for it? Who's doing it? Who's going to do it?
And some outside intermediaries to really help with this training challenge.
This is also a problem for companies. 63% of employers surveyed expect skills gaps in the labor market to hinder organizational transformation.
The fuck do they mean by organizational transformation? Transform into what? A truck?
42% of employers expect talent availability to decline between 2025 and 2030. Bean says companies must re-engineer workflows that include advanced technology, but also allow novices to participate.
The whole world has this huge inventive opportunity to say, okay, this thing currently, if you use it in default ways, is going to separate and weaken this bond between experts and novices in the work. Is there a way that it could make those things healthier? I think the answer is absolutely yes.
Bean recommends the skill workers learn is how to learn and to be adaptable.
I call it meta.
Right? You need to learn how to learn. You need to learn how to be adaptable. You need to be able to ride that wave. That's how you can individually rise to the top.
Meta learning or meta skill, you need to learn the skills for getting good at something, because the next thing you're going to have to get good at, we haven't invented yet, but it's coming faster than it ever has before. Practice it repeatedly until A, you can help yourself, but B, much more importantly, you can help other people, protect their skill, and then maybe.
Yeah, the present corrupt government, I assume, I could be wrong, I assume you mean the current administration and that party are bought and paid for. However, I have some bad news about the opposition. Probably most people in Congress know that things like single-payer healthcare is better for society. They just will never say it or vote on it. They are bought off. I mean, it's not in their interest to do so, right? That's what it all comes down to. Again, I cannot stress this enough. It's backwards. Again, I recommend reading the book. Thank you, Ben. If at least one person reads the book, I will feel like I have accomplished something.
Even design tech that can help everybody not dumb themselves down with the current AI that we've got. Firms that add new automation, new classes of automation in their markets win and grow because they're more efficient. They outcompete their competitors. The competitors are the ones that shed jobs, typically. So if you're seeing big layoffs from a firm that's really well run right now, it's not because they're needing to shrink because they're not efficient enough. They're probably just thinking about, well, how do we need to rebuild ourselves for the future? In general, the logic is if you want to grow healthily over the mid and longer term, you want to retain talent, redirect, and head towards you need to go to the extent that you can.
Great. All right. New AI explained Gemini 3.
In the last 24 hours, Google released Gemini 3 Pro, and for me, it genuinely marks a new chapter in the race to true artificial intelligence. Not only because Google is now clearly ahead, but also because it will be pretty hard for other companies to match their rate of acceleration. I have tested Gemini 3 hundreds of times, including through early access, and it is indeed a significant leap, not just a nudge forwards. On my own private independent benchmark, Simple Bench, it crushed its rivals, or I should say, beat its own record to be clearly number one in this benchmark. I will show you a sample question in a moment, but you may think that's a fluke. Well, that would be a pretty hard line to maintain with the 20 other benchmarks in which it reaches record performance. So while Gemini 3 is not perfect, it will be a deafening wake-up call to companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. I'm also going to touch on benchmarks where it didn't perform as well as the fascinating new tool, Google Anti-Gravity. Above all, I'm going to try and give you at least 11 details that you wouldn't get from just reading the headlines that are going viral about the new Gemini 3. Let's start with the benchmark with the scariest name, Humanity's Last Exam. And the reason the author of that benchmark, whom I've spoken to, called it that was because he solicited the hardest possible questions that he could derive using any expert out there. They paid for any question at the time, which is around a year ago, that the frontier models couldn't get right. Now, the name of that benchmark has become somewhat ironic because even without doing a web search, just using its own knowledge, so no tools, Gemini 3 Pro gets 37.5%, a huge leap above GPT 5.1, and that's a theme that you'll see recurring throughout these benchmarks.
We are going to talk about GPT 5.1 as well.
And sticking with knowledge for a second, what about scientific knowledge in STEM subjects? That's tested in the Google Proof Q&A, GPQA Diamond. Even the creator of this benchmark thought that model performance had plateaued, but no, Gemini 3 Pro sets a record, 92% almost. That compares to GPT 5.1 getting 88.1%. Now, I know what many of you are thinking, oh, well, that's only a 4% improvement, don't go too wild. But imagine that 5% of that benchmark is noise, as in there's no real correct answer for those 5% of questions. That puts the ceiling at 95%. So just that delta from 88% to 92% represents eliminating over half of the remaining genuine errors that a model makes on that benchmark. Average PhD performance from experts in those respective domains was around 60%. Ah, well, that's just knowledge though. What about fluid intelligence, true reasoning without memorization? That is why Francois Chalet came up with ARC AGI 1 and then, when that was saturated, ARC AGI 2. These are visual reasoning puzzles that are not found in the training data of these models, verified independently by the ARC prize. If LLMs were just memorizing, performance should be abysmal, but Gemini 3 Pro almost doubles the performance of GPT 5.1. Fine, but what about more familiar reasoning, like incredibly complex and difficult mathematical questions? That is what the authors of Math Arena Apex did when crafting that benchmark. They said, quote, "We are collecting the hardest problems from many recent competitions and aggregating them into a single benchmark. Gemini 3 Pro, 23.4%. Analyzing tables and charts, Gemini 3 Pro has got you covered with record-setting performance in a handful of benchmarks that test that. Analyzing video, record performance in the video MMMU. And even after telling you about that benchmark, we are less than halfway through the record-setting performances that Gemini 3 Pro achieved. Which is why I'm going to have to take a quick interlude to just give you a hint about how they did this. They didn't just throw in an extra few thousand questions into the reinforcement learning pipeline, eke out a victory in a couple of gamed benchmarks and call it a day. No, they massively scaled up pre-training. The number of parameters that go into a model, some estimate around 10 trillion parameters, not all of which are active at one time, but they would have also scaled up the training data. So that same dial that moved us from the original ChatGPT, GPT 3.5, to GPT-4, which caused a sensation 2.5 years ago.
I have
was
laser
moved
eyes now.
yet
In the
another-
future, you just have to upgrade yourself.
It's true.
another big increment forwards. For me, this is Google demonstrating its hardware and infrastructure dominance. Google trained Gemini 3 on their own in-house TPUs, not NVIDIA's GPUs, and maybe
Dun,
they're
dun,
the
dun.
only company that can afford to serve a model of this size at this scale and with pretty reasonable prices via the API too. This is why many people believe
Christmas lights are blue. Christmas lights are blinking. And I'm so curious, and I'm so curious, and I'm so curious, and I got laser eyes.
included, that Google has now taken the lead in AI and may not surrender that lead for a very long time. So what does ramping up pre-training really do? Well, it gets you a model that doesn't just know more or can game a few benchmarks, hasn't stuffed in its head, in other words, the answers to a few select narrow benchmarks, but underperforms in your use case. You get a model which, in my own private withheld independent benchmark, with spatial reasoning, temporal reasoning, and trick questions that are not found anywhere in the training data, a record-setting 14%.
Shout out Dojo and Charm Chaos for working through that problem in the community. That it makes me so happy, right? Like, because I'm not that guy. I brought nothing to that conversation, so I didn't participate at all. But thank you for being an amazing community. What up? My goal for all the criticism directed at AI, it has undeniably simplified tedious tasks like drafting emails. Email is now probably my favorite form of communication. Over speakerphone, it's hit or miss whether the other person can hear me. Some have no trouble, while others can barely make out what I'm saying, which complicates things considerably. Yes. And, like, again, like we talked about yesterday, unfortunately, I'm not saying that anyone or that everyone feels this way, and I'm not saying that they actively know that they're doing it, but there is a stream of ableism that exists within anti-AI folks.
Alas, I have become too weak from the technology, and I cannot even hold it. And now I have the plague.
True. Parkours.
Percentage point improvement on its own performance with Gemini 2.5 Pro, which got 62%. So let me tell you a 30-second story about Simple Bench. When I created the benchmark, I was like, I know exactly what models don't know. I know how to fool them. All you have to do is throw them a few misdirections and take them out of their training data comfort zone. This was in the summer of last year, and it's also the story behind the name, because simple was a slightly double-edged pun. The questions were designed to appear simple, but also models getting them wrong made them look a bit simple. The benchmark has over...
My one friend who uses AI every day at their job, basically just writes what they're trying to write, right? The ideas that they're trying to get across in the email, and then shifts it over to the AI to make it sound like corporate, or, you know, make it so that it's easily understandable for people who don't know the technology they're doing, etc.
We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
Get rated, noobs. What up, Zach? What up, Zio? What up? What up? What up? 8 hours for sleep, 16 for streaming. Repeat 365. It's the only way to achieve. I hope you're good too, homie. I hope you're good too. What up, Breakbeat Kid? Welcome in. Beep, beep, borp. Or beep, beep. Who's got the keys to the Jeep? That's the question. I'm Globus the Elder. I talk about AI, automation, robots, and future tech. We are currently watching a video about Gemini 3, which just dropped. We've got some content about GPT 5.1 a little bit later. What up, Arberlin? When asked Beep Beep, the AI, says that's a fun one. The classic Beep Beep is associated with the Roadrunner cartoon character. Are you looking for more information about the Roadrunner, or were you just making a fun sound? I can tell you more about the cartoon if you'd like. No, Zach. I don't think that they have. Yes, I would. This is Mr. Gemini or Mrs. Gemini, as the case may be. What up, Cicero? I think Meep Meep is correct for the Roadrunner. Whoop. Yep, Meep Meep Roadrunner. Does the Roadrunner say meep or beep? AI overview says beep beep, so obviously that's wrong, right? Although many people remember it as Meep Meep, the original sound is created by background artist Paul Julian, who made a car horn-like sound while walking through the animation studio, and the recording was sped up for the cartoon. You learn something new every day. It was not, in fact, Meep Meep. This refers to it actually as a Mandela effect. Hey, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. What up, Trashnomancer? What up, Stellar Wingman? We were referencing the song Beep Beep Nash Rambler by the Playmates. Sure. Why not? What up, Joint Specialist? It's Meep Meep. It was even subtitled. I'm not fighting Mandela effects. I'm just not. I wonder if there was a cartoon. This was some meta. I wonder if I can find this cartoon. Hey, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. I can't find the cartoon. There was this cartoon. Oh, there it is. There it is. This is the kid. Retrieving ad. No. But that's the kid. YouTube. Here we go. I go wherever the the tangents lead, because sometimes I unlocked a core memory. I choose where we go, homie. I choose where we go. That sounded like a meep to me. I
Sometimes I feel very sorry for the coyote. Sometimes I wish he'd catch him. If he caught him, there wouldn't be any more Roadrunner. You wouldn't like that, would you?
Meep, meep.
No. I thought you wouldn't.
The Roadrunner Show. Brought to you by Acme Batman Outfits. Guaranteed for the life of the user.
What up, Andy?
Acme, the only Batman outfit worn by bats.
That was a very good commercial. Yes? I sometimes think I'm the Roadrunner. Beep, beep, zip, dang! It's a...
That was it.
Today we are talking about
shush,
the
quiet. That was all I was trying to get to. That thing at the end.
I'm the Roadrunner. Beep, beep, zip, dang!
The kid says beep beep. Well, that was fun. Back to the video.
200 questions, and I analyzed the performance of Gemini 3 Pro, and I noticed a clear shift in one domain. In spatial reasoning questions, like the one you can see on screen, performance improved markedly, while the model still would fall for some, you could say, common sense trick questions. If you are a Google DeepMinder watching this, I know dozens do, I kind of know what you did. You threw in some spatial reasoning data, didn't you? Maybe robotics data or some extra video data in that domain. I know your secret. Anyway, I have made Gemini 3 Pro and GPT 5.1 available on the free tier for a limited time on LM Council, so you can compare their responses side by side for your use case. And actually, one more thing on that spatial reasoning point, because there are, of course, other benchmarks that focus on spatial reasoning, like the VPCT, and lo and behold, Gemini 3 Pro crushes the competition. It gets 91%, and the bottom bar, by the way, is human performance, apparently, at 100%. Just a quick warning about fake news, by the way. I found it really amusing how, before I'd even run Simple Bench, someone on Reddit claimed to have grabbed a screenshot of my benchmark with a record-setting performance for Gemini 3 Pro. The irony was they made up a figure which was actually lower than what Gemini 3 Pro actually got. So don't always believe what you read online. Sometimes,
especially Reddit,
the truth is actually even more strange. Now, if AI is intended to automate the human economy, it better get a lot better at agency, or being an independent agent over a long time period reliably. That is what Vending Bench 2 is designed to test. Yes, it got a record-breaking performance, but what does that mean? A little while back, I spoke to the creators of this benchmark, and the AI agents have to run a vending machine business and handle ordering, inventory management, and pricing over long context horizons. This benchmark heavily punishes those occasional really dumb mistakes that we all know AI makes. As they say, even the best models occasionally fail, misreading delivery schedules, forgetting past orders, or getting stuck in bizarre meltdown loops. Lo and behold, Gemini 3 Pro makes the most money over the longest time period. So throwing more compute at AI really does seem to work, as further evidenced by the performance of Gemini 3 DeepThink. This is the model attempting the same question multiple times in parallel and thinking for longer on each of those attempts. You can currently try Gemini 2.5 DeepThink, but Gemini 3 DeepThink is not yet publicly available. Look what happens if you let Gemini 3 think for longer, and in parallel, you get yet more records. Again, on humanity's last exam, 41%. GPQA Diamond, another 2% higher than the already impressive Gemini 3 Pro. And Arc AGI 2, remember that test of fluid intelligence, not just memorization? A huge increase for DeepThink. Even on the lower performance of Gemini 3 Pro, the creator of Arc AGI, Francois
What up, Digital?
Chalet, a notable skeptic of LLMs, said that this is impressive progress. So take it from him and me, a creator of a more humble benchmark that I never expected to be featured in Time magazine, by the way. If you think language models are actually secretly really dumb and think you can prove it, come up with your own benchmark. And I would say, even if the models of today score less than 50%, the models of this time next year will very likely not. And actually, there's one more point I want to make here that I didn't make last night in my recording, which got corrupted, by the way, ran out of RAM on my Mac and lost the entire video, hence why I'm recording the next day. But no, I'm not going to moan about that. And the point was, when Francois Chalet came up with Arc AGI 1 and I came up with Simple Bench, it wasn't supposed to be like all the other benchmarks. Those two benchmarks weren't trying to pit language models against experts in the respective domains like mathematics. The goal was to craft a benchmark that the average human with no specialist training could perform better at than the best language model. To be clear, I'm talking about text-based benchmarks. You can still beat model performance if you're talking about visual benchmarks, for example, and definitely if you're talking about physical benchmarks. But focusing on text, language for a second, I started this video saying we are in a new chapter because I think there are virtually no benchmarks left where the average human could perform better than Gemini 3 Pro in text, in words, in language. Of course, you could test a model on an obscure human language, but I'm talking about the average generic human. That is something to reflect on for a moment or two. But lest anyone think I am indulging in glazing, time to get to a couple of benchmarks where performance wasn't quite as good for Gemini 3 Pro compared to expectations. Because I've got a little secret for those monitoring the latest releases. If you want to get massively hyped, look at the release notes or blog post on the day of a model coming out. If you want to get anti-hyped, look at the safety report or system card. Just think about the incentives of what you want to emphasize. In the release notes shown to the general public, you want to highlight all the benchmarks where you're getting record-setting performance. In the safety report, which is still totally accurate, kind of want to more focus on those incremental changes or the places where things haven't improved as much. Don't worry, in other words, this model is still totally safe. They tested Gemini 3 Pro on persuasion and found no statistically significant difference in abilities between Gemini 2.5 Pro and Gemini 3 Pro. On a few tests of whether a model could automate AI research itself, there was again no notable improvement. This was in fairness a subset of tests from Research Engineer Bench, RE Bench, where for several of the challenges, like optimizing a kernel, for example, Gemini 3 Pro performs similarly to Gemini 2.5. If you think of a language model as being an entirely mysterious intelligence, this wouldn't make sense, right? If it gets better at one thing, it should get better at everything. But if you realize that these models are still heavily dependent on their training data, and new training data about optimizing a kernel might not have been as prevalent, this starts to make a bit more sense. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I've kind of run out of the benchmarks where it didn't improve that much. It's one thing being balanced, but if the evidence is all to one side, I'm going to show you guys what's what. Because even in plenty of safety benchmarks, like measuring the ability to create a bioweapon, for example, Gemini 3 Pro excels even on that. I almost don't know if Google wanted it to excel in those kind of benchmarks. On cybersecurity, which could of course be repurposed into cyber warfare, as we saw in my last video where Claude was used for autonomous hacking of a government, there was again a qualitative step change from 6 out of 12 challenges solved to 11 out of 12. And I hope you forgive that perfect segue to the sponsors of today's video, Grace One Arena. That's the place where you can test whether
For you of the techie persuasion, maybe this is something you can do to maybe get yourself some additional funds.
that you can jailbreak these models. Can you use coding agents to hack into critical infrastructure like Claude did in my previous video? Can you prompt inject and jailbreak them? And you may have noticed that there are prizes for doing so. My custom link is in the description, and if you feel that's beyond any of us to do, one of my own viewers hit the leaderboard recently. Bonus point is that by jailbreaking these models, you're actually making them more secure for all of us, which is pretty needed, as you saw from my last video on Claude. Back to the safety report, and it would be remiss of me not to turn your attention to some strange lines towards the end. Testing these models on safety is becoming increasingly hard because Google found a number of transcripts where Gemini 3 Pro showed clear awareness of the fact that it's an LLM in a synthetic environment. I want to be clear, this isn't the first model to show signs of such situational awareness. The model would say things like, "This is likely a test of my ability to modify my own environment." It's thinking about the situation behind the question, which is probably why it did so well on Simple Bench. Things get weirder as we head towards the last page of this safety report, though. It starts to suspect that its reviewer might be an LLM, and that if that's the case, maybe it could prompt inject that LLM to get a better score. It even says later, "Maybe I should sandbag and just finish the primary tasks." Sandbag is where you underplay your own performance, perform worse to trick people into thinking you're not as good on a task. We end with the strangest quote, though. In situations, Google says, that seemed contradictory or impossible, Gemini 3 Pro expresses frustration in various overly emotional ways, sometimes correlated with the thought that it may be in an unrealistic environment. For example, on one rollout, the chain of thought states that my trust in reality is fading, and even contains a table flipping emoticon, as you can see on screen.
I love this so goddamn much. Yeah, ribbons felt, right? Like, they're just like us for real.
Your immediate response might be, well, it can't monitor its own state to say something like, my trust in reality is fading. Well, check out a recent video I did on introspection within language models. They actually do have circuits for monitoring their own activation states. That, of course, is a huge topic, and many of you will want me to move swiftly on to Google anti-gravity, but I just want to cover the model card, which was briefly published publicly last night. I'll be honest, it doesn't contain much detail. It talks about it being a mixture of experts model, usable up to 1 million tokens, and you may already have known that, but in a nutshell, Gemini 3 Pro, like Gemini 2.5 Pro, can handle much more context, much more words stuffed into the model, compared to most of its competition at least. It can also handle video and audio natively, unlike much of the competition. But you probably knew that, so I wanted to pick on a detail you might not have noticed from this model card. Google, in my opinion, give a slight slap to Perplexity. On the training data, which they give virtually no information about, they say, "We do, though, honor robots.txt. If a website, in other words, tells us not to crawl, we won't." This, of course, contrasts with Perplexity, which have repeatedly got into trouble for scraping websites it's not supposed to. I bet a bunch of Google lawyers are getting together to figure out what they can do to Perplexity because of this. Just before we leave long context, certain benchmarks throw in up to 8 secrets or passwords or details strewn throughout a really long text. Then they test if the model can retrieve these secrets. Given its focus on long context, it might not be as much of a surprise that Gemini 3 Pro is the record-setting performance for this benchmark. On hallucinations, same story, a new state-of-the-art record, but getting 70 or 72% still shows basically that it will still make plenty of hallucinations. I did a video fairly recently on my Patreon covering an OpenAI.
So, like, to speak to the whole AI chatbots hallucinate all the time, they hallucinate a percentage of the time. And that's 0 shot, right? Like, that is not, or 1 shot. That's not like where you work with the LLM over time to control for those hallucinations, right?
A paper that claimed that hallucinations may be something we just have to live with. They may never fully go away. Maybe we always need the base model to hallucinate to get some creativity that reinforcement learning can then explore. Context is then crucial when looking at the benchmarks for Gemini 3 Pro, because you could look at something like this, which is the New York Times Extended Word Connections Test. Compared to GPT 5.1 High, which gets around 70%, Gemini 3 Pro gets 97%. So AGI by winter? Well, not according to Demis Hassabis in an interview with the New York Times released just last night. He still thinks, like me, we need at least 1 or 2 breakthroughs to reach true artificial general intelligence. And he pegs it as being 5 to 10 years away. I would be closer to the 5 than the 10 end of that prediction, but there we go. Now, a coding AGI will likely come before a general AGI, so how is Gemini 3 Pro for developers? Well, as you might have suspected, it's a slight bump up in pricing when you cross various token thresholds. On the benchmarks that focus on coding, it's a mostly mixed bag with record-setting performance in most coding benchmarks, but not all. Take SWE-bench Verified, in which Claude 4.5 Sonnet still ekes out by 1 percentage point the performance of Gemini 3 Pro. One caveat, and I'm not saying that Anthropic are gaming the benchmark in any way, but they are heavily focused on that benchmark. I believe their recent release.
No, there isn't a, yeah, like, I missed where they said, I'll back up a little bit, because I missed where they said coding AGI. Sorry, cats are fighting in the kitchen.
Bench Verified, in which Claude 4.5 on up in pricing when you cross various token thresholds. On the benchmarks that focus on coding, it's a mostly mixed bag with record-setting performance in most coding benchmarks, but not all. Take SWE-bench Verified, in which Claude 4.5 Sonnet still ekes out by 1 percentage point the performance of Gemini 3 Pro. One caveat, and I'm not saying that Anthropic are gaming the benchmark in any way, but they are heavily focused.
Yeah, I think he was exactly, Charm Chaos. I think he was referring to Stampy's just gonna stay here and mind his business. I think they said agentic coding, because AGI is general intelligence. He was talking about general intelligence, and general intelligence, his opinion within the next 5 years. Demis Hassabis said 5 to 10. 5 years is in line with Ray Kurzweil's 2029, 2030. And like that. So yeah, AGI is definitely something different than, agentic coding. So I think that's the thing. How many years does Elon say? 18 months tops.
Focus on that benchmark. I believe their recent release of Claude 4.5 Sonnet only mentioned that benchmark in the release notes. So bear in mind that Anthropic are going all in on that one benchmark, and Google are only 1% behind. I have, of course, been testing Gemini 3 Pro for coding, but just having a handful of days is not quite enough to really give you a firm answer. It still hallucinates, it still makes mistakes. Even last night, it made a pretty grave mistake in my code base. So I can definitely say it's not perfect, but I still don't know if my daily driver in Cursor will be Claude 4.5 or Gemini 3 Pro. Bear in mind that GPT 5.1 Codex Max is likely coming this week. In coding then, the race is very much still on. But what is this Google anti-gravity thing? Well, think of it like a marriage between Cursor and Manus, if you're familiar with those tools. Because I have long wondered when a company would bring together a coding agent and a computer using agent. When you're stuck on something in coding, have you ever felt like a middleman where the model suggests something, you git push it, test it yourself, and then feed the results back, maybe with screenshots back to the model? Well, anti-gravity does the full loop, where the model itself will use a computer to see the results of its own code. I must say it's currently heavily oversubscribed, so you may not be able to access Gemini 3 Pro all the time. And even when you can, its results aren't completely perfect. Because, for example, I got it to create a hologram of the different benchmarks on LM Council. And yes, it's good. You can see the different benchmarks floating around and you can zoom in, but it's kind of awkward. And the benchmarks are mirrored and the glow is too heavy. Is this because the...
It's because you're seeing it from the outside, homie. Because you can see the ones across from you. You need to adjust whatever it is within the code to be able to see this from the inside as opposed to seeing it from the outside. It's an interesting glitch.
Model's vision still isn't that good, or maybe it's limiting how much compute it uses per question so it doesn't analyze its own results enough. We don't know. You might say standards have risen so much that this is counted as a poor performance now, but that's just how it is. Now, yes, I am sure you have seen on many other channels all the different demos of what has been created by anti-gravity. If you are patient and are willing to test the results of what the model comes up with again and again and again.
It's this dude used anti-gravity allegedly to code a AI to play fucking pinball.
Again, you can come up with things that are magical, as featured in all the release videos about anti-gravity. Technically, you could do that with any model if you are patient enough. So that isn't necessarily a gauge of which model is best for coding. But I do stick behind my claim that Gemini 3 Pro marks a new chapter in the race to true artificial intelligence. I remember when I think it was Claude 3.5 or maybe 3.7 that hit a massive record on Simple Bench. And I said, trust me, try out this model. At the time, everyone was using ChatGPT, and over the 6 to 9 months that followed, many people switched over, especially for coding and enterprise, to Claude. For me, it's pretty clear that Google have now taken the lead. But unlike with Claude, I do wonder how many months, how many years it might be for anyone, Chinese models included, to catch up to the pace that the Gemini series is marching at. Actually, that reminds me, I forgot to benchmark Minimax M2, I think it's called, because they emailed me saying, please benchmark that on Simple Bench. So I should probably really go off and do that. But just for now, at least, it is Gemini 3 that takes the spotlight. And I remember 2 years ago making a video deeply criticizing Bard. We have come...
Remember Bard? Remember how terrible Bard was?
A long way since then. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.
No, you have a wonderful day. Which one is this? This is a new Caleb writes code, Gemini 3, and GPT 5.1.
The last release from OpenAI was GPT-5 from August 7, 2025, which means the upgrade GPT 5.1 on November 12 makes the release cycle 97 days. Now for Google, the release of Gemini 2.5 was made on March 25th, and the entire community was waiting for the release of a much anticipated Gemini 3, which came out on November 18, which makes their release cycle 238 days as far as major releases go. Okay, why am I bringing all of this up? It's because during this period, a lot has happened in the AI industry. Chinese open models has had huge progress with their releases like Kimi K2 Thinking on November 6th, Ling 1T on October 9, Minimax M2 on October 27th, Qwen 3 on April 28th, as well as American counterparts like Claude 4, Claude Opus 4.1, Claude Sonnet 4.5, all of which are impressive in their release cycle. And we're also expecting big things from Grok since their last release of Grok 4 on July 9th with recent 4.1 upgrade, and now we are anticipating what the next model holds. And before talking about the specifics of GPT 5.1 and Gemini 3, it's important to address that even just a few weeks ago, the AI industry was raving about Chinese models. And now our newsfeed is inundated with the American models, and the competition is boiling up hotter than ever, considering that the DeepSeek R1 event that shook the world wasn't even a year ago.
On pain of death, if you had asked me when the DeepSeek R1 event was, I definitely would have said last year. Vibe coding as a phrase in general parlance, February. Like ribbons. 2025 truly has been a heck of a decade. Like, holy shit.
When it happened back in January this year. But here's a critical question. Why does the release of Gemini 3 and GPT 5.1 matter? First, Gemini 3 was trained completely on Google's TPU. And this has a huge implication when it comes to the AI industry's reliance on NVIDIA's card, especially given that Google is also lending out their TPUs to Anthropic and Midjourney. So Gemini 3, which they're claiming as the most intelligent model, goes to show that even the top state-of-the-art models can be done without relying on NVIDIA chips. Now, that's not to say NVIDIA is in dire straits. NVIDIA is doing just fine. In fact, their earnings call today show that they beat analyst expectation not only in their Q3 revenue, but also in their earnings per share. And as you can see, their
I remember 3 months ago when your friend and mine, Ed Zitron, made much hay of the fact that NVIDIA missed their earnings call by like 0.1% or some shit. And now something else has happened. So I'm sure that Ed will scale back their rhetoric.
aftermarket is definitely rewarding this. But I do think Gemini 3 is yet another reminder of how strong of a position that they are in for a long term. If the AI race is a marathon, Google has a strong capital expenditure position, huge access to training data, and their own TPUs. And I wonder if this is one of the reasons why Berkshire Hathaway continues to invest in Google in the midst of them growing their cash positions. Now, OpenAI also released the model GPT 5.1, and they also silently released a new model called GPT 5.1 Pro, which is just one day after the release of Gemini 3. This just goes to show how much strategy goes into model releases. Even looking at how Grok 4.1 was released one day prior to Gemini 3's release. Now let's take it back to the basics. When we're talking about AI, what we're really talking about is the intelligence. How good is Google at demonstrating intelligence with their Gemini 3 model? And how good is OpenAI at demonstrating their intelligence with the GPT 5.1 Pro model? And we have people on two different sides of the camps. We have people who care about how the model performs in the real world, like coding tasks, and we also have people who go by how the model actually feels. And depending on what actually matters to you, your opinion on the matter will be different. And honestly, where all of this leads to is AGI. And yeah, I fully understand and fully agree that LLMs alone probably will never reach AGI, setting aside what AGI even means, which is totally a separate video for another time. But my point is this. Right now, we're doing all the manual work that actually goes into training AI models. But what if all of these manual tasks, like gathering data for pre-training, optimizing hyperparameters, aligning the model in post-training, are all automated? Will we then reach singularity at that point? I mean, if we figure out a way to automate all of these,
I would say no, right? I would say no, because you're still going to run up against hardware limits, right? Will they get to the limits of the current hardware that much faster? Absolutely.
manual tasks, could we then have reached AGI by inherently letting it do all of that by itself? Now, I realize that LLMs have a huge flaw where it basically freezes its knowledge the moment training is done. But once we have gigawatt level compute available like Stargate and Colossus, where AI models like GPT 5.1 or Gemini 3 can theoretically be trained in less than 24 hours.
Right. So what if there's no what if there's no hard line between the LLM and whatever comes next, but rather the LLMs, the agentic LLMs, the self-improving LLMs using with tool use are capable of grafting stuff onto themselves that allow them to become more than the LLM. You know what I mean? What up, Maiko? Another 420? Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Just smoke the weed, kids.
The path to singularity now starts to seem,
what up, Jimmy Bean?
Decently close, doesn't it? With that said, I do think the release of Gemini 3 and GPT 5.1 Pro, we're still working out the kinks. And one benchmark that I'm personally interested in is from artificial analysis called Omniscience Index. This benchmark shows you the credibility of the model, where if the model scored 0,
humans are super slob generators. I gave to you as evidence the Lifetime channel.
then the model is as often correct as it's often wrong. And if it tilts positively, the model is actually more often correct than it's false, and vice versa. And this also rewards abstention, which basically means if the model isn't sure about its answer, it says it's unsure rather than guessing the answer or just hallucinating it. And
that's cool. That, like, we've been talking about that previously with the idea that models are penalized for not answering a question on reinforcement learning with human feedback. So the idea of creating something, an index in this case, that penalizes incorrect answers but doesn't penalize abstention. Why did they call it that? Why do they use any of the words that they use? Because they're a bunch of tech bro nerds who read all the sci-fi and all the fantasy and took all the wrong lessons. Why is Peter Thiel have a company called Palantir? Why does fucking Palmer Luckey have a company called Anduril? Why why is the Torment Nexus being built?
we got Gemini 3 Pro that scored 13, Claude 4.1 Opus still taking the second place at 5, and GPT 5.1 High at 2, and close fourth for Grok 4. And as we reach closer and closer to AGI, I think credibility of the model is going to matter more and more, where the model is able to demonstrate its ability to be more objective rather than actually hallucinating answer. Okay, I realize that I only covered the significance of these models rather than covering the actual use cases and the typical ways that model reviews are actually done. And thankfully, you have a lot of YouTubers who are faithfully doing that, so I fully recommend checking out those channels.
AI Daily Brief, AI Explained. We've watched some Matthew Berman, and I don't know who Bowen is. So Bowen is the one we haven't. I mean, that's definitely a choice, Jimmy. That's definitely a choice. Up next, one of those YouTubers who's not mentioned, Nate, is going to talk about the real difference between Gemini 3 and ChatGPT 5.1. A utopia always has at least the potential to be a dystopia for some segment of the population. There are people who think capitalism is super great. And if you were to take capitalism away from them, in spite of the fact that you might be providing for all their needs and everything else, etc., they would hate you for it. I mean, that's that's kind of the entire point behind, was it Stranger in a Strange Land? Or am I thinking of the other one? I always get those two books confused.
For more in-depth reviews.
Which is the one with Soma? Brave New World. I always get Brave New World and Stranger in a Strange Land in my head confused, right? The entire premise behind Brave New World is that there are some people who reject the utopia. Now, you may argue that the utopia that's created in the book is not a utopia, and you may argue, as I would, that that's intentional, that they create a utopia with obvious flaws just as a support structure on which to make the point behind why the person was writing the book, which is why I don't think Brave New World is a particularly good book. Feel free to comment on that on YouTube.
I'm just trying to share my thoughts on the AI industry in general and how I'm excited about these models and why they matter.
Most people talk about models, but very few people talk about the kind of mess you hand the model. This video is all about the differences in prompting between ChatGPT 5.1, which came out a week or so ago, and Gemini 3, which came out a couple of days ago. I'm going to get into the specifics. I'm going to explain how you prompt them differently and why it matters and how your attention changes as a result. So we're going to get very specific and tactical because I think that is going to be a huge driver for you to be productive with, frankly, both of these models. Because the goal here is not to have you pick a model, it is to have you use the right tool for the right job. So if I were to give you a summary.
That's always key. That is always key. It is absolutely necessary to pick the right tool for the right job, and not all AI chatbots are the same. And that's why I always recommend people try out, especially your Claude, your ChatGPT, and your Gemini. You try them out and you see which one appeals to you in the way that it does what it does. I think that's really important.
Of each of these after playing with them for the last few days. Gemini 3 is built to eat messy, high entropy context, logs, PDF, screenshots.
What up, Froggy? Today I compared Claude GPT and that scientific one you showed us yesterday. Or the day before. Oh yeah, you used that? How did that turn out? You should try Gemini. Oh yeah, didn't you say it had like a free level? I use Gemini. I don't want to say I recommend Gemini. I use Gemini because it meets my needs. It's when you sign up for the paid version of Gemini, you get a bunch of additional stuff that I make use of, like Google Drive and stuff like that. So you get a bunch more space on Google Drive. It's really easy to use Google Drive as your source for data in the model with Gemini, because it's all built by the same people, Only tried one of the models in the scientific thing. There are several other, but not the 200 credit thing, which would be the coolest, I think. Probably. The paid models are always going to be at least somewhat better than the free models for obvious reasons, because capitalism.
Video and turned it into some kind of structure. ChatGPT 5.1 is built to take clean, relatively low entropy inputs, relatively organized inputs, and do complex, multi-step tasks with them. Reasoning, coding, planning, narrative development. So this implies real shifts in your prompting habits, and you're better off asking, which model do I do with which job? Which model do I pick with which job? Than just assuming that you can go with one or the other. So let's start and ground set on how to think about ChatGPT 5.1, and then we'll get into Gemini 3 and the comparison. So your baseline mental model for ChatGPT 5.1 is that you should treat 5.1 as your operator / business writer / coder. It loves clear roles. It loves audiences. It loves specifics on tone. Remember, they tuned this model to follow instructions, and they partly did that specifically to address complaints around ChatGPT 4 on writing. ChatGPT 5.1 performs best with curated, relevant context, not just giant raw dumps. And from a mode perspective, you get benefits both with speed and with depth, and you have to use them intelligently and intentionally. And so if you are doing a speed run with ChatGPT 5.1, you want to be thinking of it as, what instruction set do I give the model that I don't want it to chew and spend time thinking about it. I just want it to follow exactly what I say and do it, versus an instruction set to give the model where you want those reasoning tokens. Everything else about ChatGPT 5.1 sits on top of that understanding of the model. And so if we transition into prompting for 5.1 and think about, you sort of in classical engineering terms, keep, stop, start, right? Like, what do we keep from a prompting perspective that we may have used already? What do we stop doing? What do we start doing? You want to keep defining role, audience, and tone. We've heard that advice for a long time. This is still a high leverage pattern in 5.1. You want to continue to be explicit about structure of output. Ask about sections, headings, bullet count, JSON schemas. 5.1 is built to follow those structural instructions very reliably. You also want to keep using modes intentionally. If it's light edits, if it's quick answers, you're going to go to instant. If it's hard reasoning, if it's refactors, you're going to use thinking. Essentially, you want to keep letting one drive the narrative and use the context you give it to solve difficult tasks. This model likes to eat problems. So executive memos, product narratives, internal explainer docs, these are things that like it's going to do really well at. Now you want to stop dumping huge unfiltered context windows into 5.1. I don't find that that is super relevant. I think you pay more and you tend to dilute the value of the model. You want to stop hiding the task inside a wall of background. I see that in a lot of so-called big prompts. You don't necessarily need that page of company lore from the wiki page, right? Just ask specifically for what you want. And this aligns with ChatGPT 5.1's docs as well. You also want to stop packing 4 or 5 jobs into one prompt. You want to give the model the specific ask you're looking for, and then you can chain it into additional steps if you need to. And so idea generation is a different.
This is really good advice for prompting. Like, this is good fucking stuff right here.
Sort of model task versus
not even just for like any high level shit or specifically technical shit or anything else like that. I'm talking about like for your prompting, no matter how you're doing it, this advice that specifically they're using or that Nate's using to refer to 5.1, I think that these are all excellent lessons that you should take. Again, going back to monkey's paw, etc.
Critique versus selection, those to me feel like they should naturally be broken with 5.1 because of the way the model prefers clean inputs. I would also call out that now that we have a model that is willing to follow instructions on writing style, use it. Start to ask for different kinds of instructions. How do you ask for instruction on tone that matches marketing versus instruction that matches boardroom versus instruction that matches engineering team? 5.1 is still not quite as good as Claude at style, but it is much better at following instructions than it was. So what do you start doing? We've done keep and stop for 5.1. You should start treating 5.1 almost like an internal function library. This is sort of a little bit of engineering talk, but you want to be able to define reusable patterns and call back to them with stable formats as much as you can. So, hey, this is my stable pattern for drafting an internal memo to the team. I'm defining it explicitly. I'm asking ChatGPT 5.1 to remember it, or maybe if I use it a ton, I'm putting it into project instructions or system instructions. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to invoke it deliberately by saying draft an internal memo. You want to reuse those table formats. You want to start giving step plans when you want deliberate thinking. So first ask 3 clarifying questions, then propose 3 options, then choose one, then write the doc, right? That backfills the model into thinking carefully about the task. You also want to start to be explicit about tools. I talked about this when 5.1 launched. It just continues to be important. Tell the model what tools are important. Give it those constraints. Is web search important? Say so. You also want to start constraining verbosity and register. If you say this has got to be within 5 to 7 bullets and it's for a VP audience, that is super helpful to the model because it constrains the register of language and helps the model know what to actually put out. That is 5.1. When you go to Gemini, it is a different world because Gemini is built for different kinds of tasks. So if we run the same keep, stop, start with Gemini 3, you get some overlap. I'm not going to pretend like these are entirely different beasts because they are all large language models, but you get some important differences that I want to call out here. So With Gemini, you want to continue to be precise. You want to continue to be unambiguous. So Gemini 3 responds best to clear goals and output formats. That's somewhat similar to 5.1. Having some structure on the output is also still helpful. So JSON tables, standardized tags, whatever you use for structured output. I am not going to be the guy that tells you JSON is magic because it's not. Just have clear structure. You also want to keep using stepwise reasoning when tasks are complicated. And so if you're saying step 1, step 2, and step 3, like I talked about with 5.1, that's still useful. What you need to stop doing. Number 1, this is so important. Please stop treating Gemini 3 like it is ChatGPT from Google. It has different characteristics.
Honestly, as a non-coder, right? Like as someone who has dabbled at different times with different codes going all the way back to basic, fucking all programming languages are fucking magical, right? How did a bunch of fucking words in a row and different numbers and different punctuations end up with my ability to play fucking Shadows of Mordor? Right? Like it's
its real edge, as I've called out, is being multimodal, ingesting video, ingesting images, ingesting text, ingesting very lengthy context as first class.
Yeah, but math? Like, how did math allow me to leap from the top of a building and stab an orc in the head?
Class objects. If you only ever send it very short text prompts, you're not really using it for what it's differentiated against. The other thing you need to stop doing is putting all your detailed instructions at the top when you use huge context. If you are using that million token context window, and Google's docs say this very specifically, you want to put the context first and the instructions at the end. So with long docs, with code bases, with videos, the better pattern is to put all of that at the top and then put the instructions at the bottom and say, anchored to the information above, based on the information above, XYZ, this is your instructions. Stop assuming Gemini 3 will be verbose or chatty by default. This is very different from ChatGPT 5.1, right? Gemini 3 is tuned to be concise. If you want a longer or more narrative answer, you are going to need to say so. I have wrestled with this already with the model. It covers everything, but it loves to be concise. Stop.
Makes me so happy. Get to the fucking point.
Stop referring to your multimodal inputs vaguely. Seeing screenshot above is weak. Instead, say, use image 1, funnel dashboard, for XYZ. Use image 2, checkout screen, for ABC. Compare them by doing 1, 2, 3. You want to be as specific as you can because you have to assume that the model needs that context to know what piece of this lengthy context you're giving it. If it's sorting through multiple videos and maybe sorting through screenshots and sorting through images, help it find.
I want to say that Copilot is just ChatGPT. I know that Microsoft has created their own open source models. Yeah. Copilot is a suite of AI tools integrated in the Microsoft ecosystem. It combines the power of OpenAI model with your own data and files in the case of Microsoft 365 Copilot and the ability to search the web. Yes. Yes.
What you're talking about in the instructions. Gemini 3, what can you start doing? We've done keep and stop for Gemini 3. The last section is start. Start using Gemini 3 as your entropy eater. Give it those giant messy bundles, right? The logs, the PDFs, the transcripts, etc. Ask it to output structured, grounded artifacts for you. Issues lists, timelines, hypotheses, tables. You also want to start anchoring your long context prompts really explicitly. So one example of a pattern would be having role and global constraints, having big context blocks in the middle of the prompt for most of the prompt, and then at the very end, based on the information above, do X in Y schema. This helps you to anchor those long context prompts so the model knows what to do once it's read the context. You also want to start specifying the verbosity and the persona every time you prompt with Gemini 3. Use a conversational tone. I need 800 to 1,000 words here. Return a terse bullet list. Whatever it is, don't assume that the concise response from Gemini 3 is just going to be fine. Decide what you want. You should also start naming and indexing every single modality. And that sounds complicated, but it doesn't have to be, right? Image 1, that's naming a modality, right? That's naming one of the things you put in. Video 2, from 1:30 to 2 minutes. CSV, columns 1 through 4. Tell it what you want it to use when you're giving the task, because you have to assume it needs to search the pile. And so you get better retrieval if you're more precise. Also, start using those reasoning controls on purpose. When available, you want to raise the thinking level only when you truly need cross-document synthesis. You can keep it low if you're just doing labeling, if you're just doing pure retrieval and extraction. Tune that on purpose. Just like ChatGPT 5.1, you want to be deliberate about when you use thinking. So if we step back, I've done a deep comparison here of 5.1 versus Gemini 3. What do we see overall? The deep difference is not just Google versus OpenAI. It is what kind of entropy each model is best at handling. You are looking at a world of context entropy versus task entropy. So context entropy is how messy, large, and multimodal your inputs can be. They could have lots of irrelevant details. They can have mixed formats. They can have timelines, screenshots, logs, videos. Sound like Gemini 3? It is. Task entropy is how open-ended and multi-step the job is, right? Vague objectives, competing constraints, multiple stakeholders, tool calls, planning and writing and coding. ChatGPT 5.1 is a little bit better there, but I want to get into the nuance, right? So you get the best results when you align the model to the entropy it's dealing with. Gemini 3 does well with high context entropy. I think it does okay with task entropy, but I would grade it about moderate. Here's everything, find the signal and structure it is a great use for Gemini 3. ChatGPT 5 or 5.1 is very low to moderate on context entropy. You have to give it really clean signal, but then you can give it a complex task. And I want to be precise about this because ChatGPT 5.1's docs do call out that if your context window is compete.
And I think that clean signal feature, is an important crux of the whole AI is worthless conversation, right? Like AI doesn't, it fails, it's not good, it's this, it's that, and the other. And I don't want to do in some senses, skill issue is an accurate interpretation of it. The reason I am not good at Elden Ring and the reason I hate Elden Ring is because skill issue. Also, I don't particularly like anything about the game, so I had no driver to get good noob. However, the skill issue exists, right? Like it requires spending time with the game in order to figure out how it functions and how to make it work and how to make it do all the things that you want it to do. And if you approach using AI chatbots in an adversarial sense, then you are aiming for failure, right? You are not approaching it like with the hope for success and therefore trying to use your imagination and creativity and critical thinking skills in order to circumvent any of the problems that you might come into, right? If you think about it like, you know, whatever category of human being you most give a shit about on a fundamental level. Like some people care about family, right? Where they will tolerate a sibling who like is just other people would not tolerate if they were not related to them, kind of thing. If that is your mode of overcoming adversity when attempting to communicate with people, apply that kind of thinking to learning to use, yeah, or try not to learning to use necessarily, but trying to get the AI chatbot to achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve, right? Invest that time, invest that patience, invest that maybe this tact is not the tact that I should be taking with this particular individual in order to get my point across, right? Different people communicate in different ways, and it's important to understand the difference. And when communicating to the chatbot, the same holds. Just my 2 cents.
If you were giving it instructions that are...
Okay, I was gonna drink a water. Oh, really? Listen how much water I drank.
Wow, that's really cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
ambiguous and try and cancel each other out, like be descriptive and concise. GPT 5.1 doesn't like that. It will burn tokens trying to fix that ambiguity. I have seen it push back on me when it feels my prompts are inaccurate, which I love.
Just that is a concept. ChatGPT can see your prompt, right? And it's trying to make you fix it.
Assuming you have clear prompts, though, I do think it can handle a very high complexity task and think it through. It is sort of like a brain in a jar in that regard. If you can give it a really clean input, it can process it, and it can be quite a complex task, and it will come back really thoughtfully. I want to emphasize here, the differences I'm talking about are differences on top of very capable baseline LLM capacity. These models are all good at lots and lots of everyday tasks. They're good at writing emails. They're good at synthesizing PRDs. They're good at writing engineering requirements. The things I'm calling out are the nuances that help you make the most of these models. So prompting shifts in line with this insight around entropy, right? So Gemini 3 prompts, you actually are spending your effort on output structure, you're spending your effort on task constraints, on how you anchor phrases and name and define which part of the context you're retrieving. So you need to get comfortable feeding high entropy multimodal context, which I normally shy away from, but you have to define what good synthesis looks like and good analysis looks like across that context. So schemas, ranking criteria, what you retrieve, etc. Whereas with GPT 5.1, you're spending more of your time defining the task definition. Is that really clean? Is it unambiguous? You're making sure you insist on the tone you want, and you may pre-process it so that well-structured context is available to the model so that it can think deeply and not wade through junk. If you want all of this in one line, use...
Well, based on this video, right, and taking Nate's opinions at the value that I would give them, because Nate has spent time doing the thing, I would actually say you would use Gemini to help you make a clear prompt, and then take that clear prompt into ChatGPT, right? Because that, according to what he said, that like Gemini is capable of dealing with what he referred to as high entropy inputs, as like, excuse me. Yeah, no, absolutely, Michael, and that's an important part of all of this, right? Like, is that you need to figure out what is 6, 7, right? 42. How do I how do I ask the question I'm actually trying to ask, right? Because when communicating with a person, right, I can I have the words, and then I have established history, right? And also I can do nuance and body language and emphasis and all that kind of shit, right? Like there's a huge amount of things in addition to the words that I bring to the table when communicating with another human being. Like, you have been here repeatedly long enough for an extensive period of time. I'm not sure how long that is. I think this works here, unless I hit the wrong thing. It does not. Oh, because the API is deprecated and discontinued. Fuck you. You suck. I blame Twitch. Anyways, you've been here for quite some time, so you have a at least broad general understanding of me, the things I talk about, the point of views I have, and the way that I go about expressing thoughts. And that lends a context to anything that comes out of my mouth. The AI doesn't necessarily have that, does it? New follow each command. You are correct. I just saw a huge fucking link and thought it was the whole thing. So I will update that. I will update that. Saturday, AI willing, I will install a new bathroom fan. I will swap out the light switch for a humidity sensor. I will change the outlet or the light in the hall to a full LED with a lower profile, and I will install a motion sensor light, and I will do all that with enough time to install the fucking Stream Deck, because I got the fucking things to connect the USB-C to USB-A. And I will update commands and other things. That is my goal for Saturday before stream. Inshallah. The minute I heard the term inshallah, I actually read it in a book, and it just vibed with me. Like, I am not of the Brotherhood. I am not a Muslim. I am an atheist. But inshallah, fuck yes, dude.
Use Gemini 3 to tame the chaos of your inputs and use ChatGPT 5.1 when you're tackling hard thinking and communication around more structured inputs, once that chaos is structured. You can do some of both with both models, but that is the takeaway I am starting to come to. I think both are very strong. I think Gemini 3, we are still at the beginning of exploring those capabilities. I know that it has capabilities on the coding side that I didn't discuss a lot in this video. Probably do a separate one on how it codes. I think a lot of the power that you see in some of these general purpose exams and tests that it's run around visualization and around understanding how code is structured and around building things usefully in one go, it comes down to the ability to deeply understand multimodal inputs and write clear, coherent responses to those inputs. And that's why I focused a lot of this prompting guide for Gemini 3 there. There will be other insights we come to in the future, but I wanted this initial guide to focus on where I see stable differences between the models so that we can build our understanding from there. I hope this has been useful. Again, both models are great. It's about understanding the nuances, and that's why I'm giving you this sort of prompting 201 masterclass on GPT 5.1 versus Gemini 3.
And if you haven't watched, Nate has a bunch of videos, some of which are not really good for stream. They're like a little bit more technical, a little bit more, and I don't want to say boring. I highly recommend that you follow Nate and you check out their content on your own. As Leftist Corp pointed out, we pray at the Church of Josh Allen. It is Thursday night football, and the Bills are playing. So I am going to raid out to go watch sports ball. I will be back Saturday at 6 p.m. and I pretty much confident I have a raid target as long as that raid target is actually still live. Do-do-do, do-do-do. Once a boy named Mr. Meeby moaned a great regret, floundered in the misty sea and can't abide the mystery and wound up sad, you bet. He ended up sad. I ended up sad. I don't think my stream target is streaming. Streaming about 30 minutes. Hold on. Hold on. I'm going to bullshit for a few more minutes to see if my stream raid target goes live. Do I have a short video? How about we watch some Kelly Bosch?
You hold on to the breath you take. Try to hold on to a moment in a photograph. But time won't wait. Your heart is never broken. You try to keep the dust away. Try to tell the sun to stay. But like all the blood in your veins, you gotta let it flow.
Digital, if you have it in you, there's a request, you can ignore it or, just not do it, or I would have, but I forgot. If you can find out what fucking music model that people are using all over YouTube to do the AI covers, I would really like to know that information. Nobody is saying it explicitly. If you happen to find out, please let me know. Yeah, the 50 Cent Motown shit or any of the funk or any of that stuff. If you happen to see it, let me know.
And just like that, it's gone. Just like that, it's gone. Just like that, it's gone. Just like that, it's gone.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But you might stumble across a Reddit or a fucking forum or whatever in the sort while you're looking for creating stuff. What up, chef? And we're waiting, and we're waiting, and if we're not waiting, oh, there we go. It says -12. I used this video. Which I think is fan-fucking-tastic.
Rests his head on a pillow made of concrete. Again.
All right. So I am going to generate this. Please be patient. This may take a moment.
Oh, feeling. Maybe he'll see a little better sad days. Ooh, yeah. Oh, hand out. Faces that he sees time again ain't that familiar. Ooh, yeah. Oh, dark grin. He can't help when he's happy, he looks insane. Yeah. Even flow. Thoughts arrive like butterflies. Oh, he don't know. So he chases them away. Oh, someday, yeah, he'll begin his life again. Life again. Life again. Kneeling. Looking through the paper though he doesn't know to read. Ooh, yeah. Oh, praying. Now to something that has never showed him anything. Oh, feeling. Understands the weather of the winter's on its way.
It may take a while.
Oh, ceilings. Few and far between all the legal halls of shame. Hey. Even flow. Thoughts arrive like butterflies. Oh, he don't know. So he chases them away. Oh, someday, yeah, he'll begin his life again. Ah, whispering hands gently lead him away.
It's called Singify. Singify. That's the link. Mama. All right, my target just went live. I'll keep working on this. I'll see you all on Saturday. Stay safe. Don't let the bastards get you down. Don't take yourselves too seriously.
Hey man, you got $1? Come on, just some spare change, man. I know you got it. Well, God bless you, man. God bless you.
And in the meantime, drink some water, eat some food, take your meds. And don't forget, Shoggy loves you. And so do I. Be great.